and so they were not afraid to die. Even if they were found reading the Bible or said anything about the love of Jesus and keeping his 10 Commandments, they were persecuted by the Roman Church. Many of these people were starved to death. They had no food. They died in the dungeons. It was a sad story, and yet it wasn't a sad story, because they were not afraid to die. They were happy to suffer and even die for Jesus. The enemies of the Waldenses continued to search them out until finally they drove them out of Italy altogether. In the wintertime, these people had to flee. They fled to the areas where there were caves and rocks and places to hide, and many of them lost their lives in these caves and in the dens and in the rocks. But their story is going on and on through history. It was in these caves that they continued to preach about Jesus. In some of these caves they wrote the story of the Bible all by hand, and they memorized, and they memorized. Finally they were driven even from the caves, and they went over the Alps into France and other countries, and because it was in the dead of winter, many of them died in the cold, the freezing cold. And so we find a people that had to leave Italy, a commandment-keeping people. They kept all 10 commandments. The seventh-day Sabbath, every seventh day, these people worshiped the true God of heaven. And now there's a monument to the Waldenses in those snow-capped mountains. They stood firm for the truth of God. Are you willing to stand firm for the truth of God? It wasn't easy, but they did. Now the story is told of how they came back into Italy in 1848. Now you will find the descendants of the Waldenses in Italy. They work in much the same way that they did many years ago, but there's no persecution now. They have religious freedom, but many of them gave up the seventh-day Sabbath. And when they came back to Italy in 1848, there was another movement that was taking place. This is when the Seventh-day Adventist Church began. And the work that the Waldenses began, the Seventh-day Adventists are to complete. It is the story of the commandments of God that reveal the love of Jesus. If you go to Rome today, you will find a Waldensian church with the same symbol, a candle with a light on it. They still use the Bible, but they do not keep all the 10 Commandments that their ancestors kept many years ago. They were persecuted because they kept the truths of God. God has a people that will be persecuted again in the future. The woman with the wings of an eagle flies into the wilderness to flee from the dragon and the serpent that has water coming out of the mouth. That water is the false doctrines, the false teachings that come from the religions that will not keep the commandments of God. This is the story of Jesus and his love and his symbol of the Lamb, and how the Waldenses for 1260 years kept the truth that is written in the Bible. Now in the end, there will be a people that will keep the 10 Commandments of God. The seventh-day Sabbath will be kept just like the Waldenses kept it. And in the end, just before Jesus comes, these people will be called the 144,000. They will suffer persecution, but they will not die. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be among that people? The only way we will be among that people is to follow the teachings that are in the Bible, and to follow the example that Jesus gave, and to keep his 10 Commandment law. Jesus is coming in the clouds of heaven very soon. He's waiting for you and me to get ready. We do not have much more time. Make sure that you begin to memorize the Word of God, and then you will be strong when persecution comes and the enemies of God try to destroy His truth. We will be able to tell the story of the love of Jesus. The Bible tells us the truths that God has given. Let's be sure we take time with the Bible.